Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is not that far away now, just a little over 3 weeks. And with a bunch of creators and reviewers getting access to the game early, there's just so much information to go over. So today I thought I'd go over every skill in KCD2 and explain what's different from the first game, what's new, and if you're just completely new to KCD in general, how these skills actually work. Because let me tell you, I feel like skills in KCD2 are going to be way more important than they were in the first game. Now, I just want to preface this with the fact that the skills that I'm going to be going over aren't every quote-unquote skill. I'm not going to be going over stats, combat, anything like that. This is purely just the skills tab. Things like Alchemy and Blacksmithing, these are the things I'm going to be going over. But I just want to start off with KCD1 and what skills were available to Henry in that game. Because we had Alchemy, Drinking, Herbalism, Horsemanship, Houndmaster, Hunting, Lockpicking, Maintenance, Pickpocketing, Reading, and Stealth. Now for KCD2, there seems to have been a little bit of a cleanup here with the skills. We've categorized a lot of these separate skills that we had in KCD1 a lot better in KCD2. So in KCD2, we have Alchemy, Craftsmanship, Drinking, Horsemanship, Houndmaster, Scholarship, Stealth, Survival, and Thievery. So you can see here that there's actually a lot less categories here, but that's because they've sort of blended into more overarching skill categories. So things like pickpocketing, lockpicking, those things are now just in thievery, and things like herbalism and hunting are sort of categorized under survival now. So already there's a bit of quality of life updates to the skill tree and how it all works, and there's obviously some new stuff here like scholarship, which we'll get into in a second. Let's start from the top of the list. We've got Alchemy, something I honestly didn't do a lot of in the first game, but I really should have, because some of those potions would have come very much in handy in those tight situations. But Alchemy is your potion making, your brewing, and in KCD2, potions can be produced a little faster than in the first game, and everything should feel a lot smoother, like time management with the hourglass and the various mechanics of putting ingredients in and stuff. All of that should feel a lot smoother. But one of the biggest things in Alchemy now is potions have different quality levels. You can make the best potions with fresh herbs and sticking very, very closely to the actual recipe. And there are 3 different tiers. You got weak, normal, and strong. So obviously the better ingredients you use and how closely you follow the recipe will determine whether your potion is strong or not. Whereas if you use really bad ingredients and you don't actually follow the recipe that closely, it could turn into a weak potion. Now, strong potions actually have different buffs to them. For example, the Savior Snaps, which is making a return in the second game, will still save your game. However, if you make a strong one, it will actually give you bonuses for the next 5 minutes or so, which can actually come in handy if you're approaching a tight combat situation, sneaking into an enemy camp or something. You want to boost your stats, but also want a quick save. Strong Savior Snaps are actually really useful for this. The Marigold Decoction is also in this game again, which is basically your health potion. And I think you're going to be wanting to make strong variants of these more than anything else. So Alchemy will be very, very useful in the second game as opposed to the first game because of these different tiers. When it comes to the actual alchemical process, you can raise and lower the kettle during the brewing process rather than using the bellows now, which gives you better control over applying heat to the brew. Like I said, a lot of the different mechanics around the alchemy table are a lot smoother, so it should, in theory, be a lot easier to follow the recipe closely. And with the emphasis of the different tiers now, I think making the whole alchemical process smoother and easier is very beneficial, and I can't wait to actually try this for myself. Now, the next one on the list is the one I am the most interested in. It is craftsmanship. This includes things like blacksmithing and tailoring, repairing your armor, clothes, weapons, things like that. And blacksmithing was actually meant to be in the first game, but was removed due to time constraints or restrictions. They just couldn't work it out, whatever the reason was. It wasn't in the first game, but was meant to be there. So I'm thankful to see it in the second game, and it looks so much fun and actually extremely useful, because some of the weapons you can craft here are going to be really, really good as opposed to the ones you can buy or find in the world. Now, obviously the best weapons aren't restricted behind blacksmithing, but a lot of the good ones are in here by the looks of things. So blacksmithing is going to be a huge feature in KCD2. Henry, of course, was a blacksmith's son in the first game, so having him not be able to do blacksmithing in the first game was a little weird. So it makes total sense for him to have this ability in the second game. We're going to finally be able to put that skill to the test, and like I said, we'll be able to craft our own weapons, potentially armor. We can also craft things like horseshoes and lockpicks, which is going to be extremely useful. And the actual process of blacksmithing looks like a lot of fun, and and it's quite simple. So you'll have to heat the metal that you're using and then put it on the anvil and rhythmically hit it with the hammer in the right spots. You'll have visual cues of how you're doing. Henry will start whistling if you get into a really good rhythm and you're hitting it in the right spot. And things like a sword, you'll have to heat the metal a couple times, hammer it into different spots on different sides to make sure that you're actually forging the blade properly. And then once it's all done, Henry will cool it off and you will have crafted a sword or a horseshoe or a lockpick, whatever it might be. Blacksmithing is genuinely the thing I am most excited to try in KCD2 because I was just so excited for it in the first game and a little disappointed it wasn't there, especially when it was one of the Kickstarter sort of features that was advertised was we would get to do blacksmithing and stuff, and then it wasn't there. So to be able to have it in the second game is really, really cool. Looks a lot of fun, looks extremely useful, and it's just adding to that immersion of what KCD is really great at, which is the realism in the medieval world. It's really grounded. We're not screwing around with magic and everything else. This is a realistic medieval RPG, and having things like alchemy and blacksmithing here and having the process of actually doing those things be so involved is really cool and just adds to that realism. Now, next one on the list, some of you might say is actually the most important, which is drinking. Now, the more you drink alcohol or alcohol-based potions, the more this skill goes up. This will mean that Henry won't get drunk as quick or can have certain advantages to actually drinking, which can actually be quite useful because when you drank wine or beer or alcohol-based potions and you did actually get drunk in the first game, it made things very, very difficult, especially if you somehow got in a fight. Good luck to you when you were drunk. So it might actually be a skill that you want to level up quite high if you plan on drinking alcohol and alcohol-based potions. One skill that you're definitely going to be leveling up just by exploring the world and such is horsemanship, because you are going to be doing a lot of riding in KCD2, especially with the 2 different maps now. The open world has expanded, so you're going to be doing a lot of riding around on pebbles, or if you choose to use a different horse, but why would you? Pebbles is magnificent. But yes, you'll be riding around the locations across Trotsky and Kuttenberg and the Bohemian countryside. And sometimes you might have to actually flee from soldiers of the enemy army or bandits, and having high horsemanship will be very useful for that because it will determine the speed at which you go on your horse, the stamina. Obviously, different horses have different stats, but having the skill on horsemanship will contribute to the stats of the horse as well. And like I said, it's going to be one of your more important skills as the open world is going to be massive, and to get the full experience you want to travel everywhere either on foot or horseback, and a little less of that fast traveling, especially in those early stages where you just want to explore, you want to experience the world. You're not going to want to fast travel too much, in my opinion. You're going to want to travel on horseback or on foot. Now, the next skill is Houndmaster, which is actually a skill that is carrying over from a DLC, a woman's lot, from KCD1. The dog was actually meant to be in KCD1 from the get-go, however it didn't really happen in time, so Mutt, who is Henry's dog, was actually added in a DLC, and you got the Houndmaster skill. Mutt is very useful. You can use him in combat. He can help you find treasure, hunt, and just be a good companion who just wants pets. Great for morale. Why wouldn't you want Mutt around? But yes, leveling this skill will give Mutt more abilities to assist Henry in his various quests. Like I said, you'll use him in combat, treasure hunting, normal hunting, and all around he'll just be a very good boy. Now, one of the skills in KCD1 has actually been completely replaced with a new one called Scholarship. In the first game, Henry was a peasant boy. He didn't know how to read, he didn't know how to handle a sword, all these various things. Obviously in KCD2, he knows how to do these things now, even if the game sort of wants you to go back to ground level at the start of the game to actually make it, you know, an interesting RPG. So they've replaced reading with scholarship. So instead of leveling up that reading skill, you will instead level up that scholarship skill. You can do this by reading books, and this can provide boons like opening up new dialogue options, finding different skills, potentially leveling up different things by reading a book. So if you want Henry to be a more learned man and show off his knowledge, this is the skill to level up for you. Although I am a little disappointed that potentially the words won't be as jumbled up as they were in the first game, because that was hilarious. Next on the list is Stealth. Now, this is a skill I honestly didn't use a whole lot of in the first game. I was very much a run in with my sword and kill everyone sort of vibe. But if you like to be a bit more sneaky, steal things, you want to level up Stealth, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you you've played any kind of RPG before, you know that this skill entails how hidden you are, how quiet you are, and what buffs and bonuses you get when sneaking around, whether it's ambushing an enemy on the road or sneaking up behind them to give them a big old hug. Stealth is the skill you want to level up for those things. It's also where you can, at least in the first game, get the skill to kill someone from behind with a dagger, whereas if you didn't level up stealth to at least level 5 and get this stealth kill perk, instead you would be knocking them out, which would be longer. You'd have the potential to be spotted more often. So I would recommend in the second game to at least level it up to a certain point. Of course you'll be doing this anyway because there'll be certain quests where they want you to be a little more hidden. Next on the list is survival. Now like I said, this is one of those categories that sort of meshed a lot of the skills from the first game into one. So this will also include herbalism, cooking, hunting, random encounters when you're fast traveling. In the first game you could come across ambushes, bandits, random knights on the road when you were fast traveling, and you'd have the option to either dive right into the world again and encounter those things for yourself, or you could try and avoid them. So leveling up survival and getting perks that help with random encounters when you're fast traveling can be quite beneficial. Herbs can spoil now and can be dried for longer shelf life. So like I said, when it comes to alchemy, the better quality your ingredients are, the better the potions will be. So if you want to focus on alchemy, you're also going to have to be quite good at herbalism. So making sure those herbs don't spoil, making sure you dry them for longer shelf life, those things are going to be important in the second game. And there will be certain stations to do this in some of the villages, as well as drying food, things like dried meat, dried fruits, to make them last longer whilst you're traveling, because things like drinking and eating food, having enough energy, so making sure you're getting sleep, those things are features in KCD. This is that realism I was talking about. There are some survival elements to the game. You have to eat, you have to drink, you have to sleep to make sure Henry has energy, because if you become hungry, your skills will start to go down, you'll start to feel a bit sluggish. Same with the energy, but of course you can also overeat and things like that. So you've got to be careful. You got to make sure you're keeping an eye on your nourishment levels, your energy levels, and things like that. And survival will help with those things. And the last skill on the list is thievery. So if you feel like being a bit mischievous and making Henry a bit of a criminal, then look no further than thievery. This skill will include pickpocketing, lockpicking, things that you can get in trouble for, basically stealing things from people's houses and such. And with the new crime and punishment system that's sort of been vamped up in the second game, if you do plan on stealing a lot of things, thievery is going to be a huge focus for you, because if you do get caught, especially on a regular basis, it could result in execution. There are different punishments now for crimes. If you want to do those things in KCD2, definitely focus on thievery and also stealth, because those sort of go hand in hand. And besides, even if you don't want to go for that criminal sort of vibe, you'll probably want to be doing lockpicking anyway, because certain quests will have you sneak into different areas, I'm sure, and there's the potential for doors to be locked, chests to be locked, which could have really good loot in them. So lockpicking you'll want to get good at, especially because a lot of people found lockpicking in the first game quite difficult. The system hasn't really changed. If anything, it's a little simpler, but not by a huge margin. It's probably just more smoother than it was in the first game. Lockpicking as a mini game can be quite difficult, especially those harder lockpicks, and if you don't have a high enough lockpicking skill, you can't even begin to lockpick something like a hard lock. So if you want to be stealing things from chests, breaking into people's houses, lockpicking those doors and such, then you're going to want to grab those lockpicking perks from thievery. Same with the pickpocketing mini game. It's quite difficult. You sort of have a timer to make sure you can steal things. The indicator will go red if you're about to be caught, sort of thing. So if you want to be doing all these things, focus on that thievery skill, because the punishments are so extreme in this game, you don't want to be dealing with them if you've been a naughty boy. And that is every skill in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Hopefully this explains a lot for those new and even those veteran players when it comes to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. In my opinion, they've really looked at what worked in the first game and what didn't, and sort of revamped a lot of the systems, especially when it comes to those skills. A lot of the skills in the first game had negative effects as well as buffs, so it was sort of a give and take system, whereas I think in the second game this has been dumbed down a lot, so a lot more perks will just be positive, rather than, for example, a skill that gives you +2 strength would give you -1 speech. A lot of that has seemed to have disappeared from the second game, which I'm quite thankful for, because there were just certain perks in the first game you didn't want to pick up because they had certain debuffs, and it wasn't really worth the buff if you got it. So very interested to go more in depth into the skills of KCD2 when it comes out on February 4th. Comment down below what skill you're going to be focusing on. What sort of systems are you most excited for in the game? Like I said, mine is blacksmithing. I can't wait to try this out in the second game. But let me know in the comments down below what your favorite skill or system is going to be in the second game. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. We're going to be doing a lot of videos on this game as it's approaching release and when it eventually releases on February 4th. So subscribe for more. Become a member today if you want to support me in another way. You get all the extra videos and live streams. And thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.